Everyone for joining us today. My name is Damecia and I will be moderating this session, Wayne State University Libraries Tech Bunker, Connecting the Dots via Community, Technology, and Engagement. And our speaker, Damecia Donahue, who is a librarian at Wayne State University. So as we are going through this webinar, if there are any issues, my colleague will be monitoring the chat. So if you have any issues with audio or with seeing any of the slides, please let us know. This webinar is presented with by ACRL University Libraries Section and Technology and Libraries Committee. Sorry, that's a really long title. The ACRL University and Libraries Section, the Technology and University Libraries Committee. So a little bit about our speaker today. So Damecia Donahue is a librarian at Wayne State University who focuses on exploring new modes of service related to innovation, technology, creativity, individuality, teaching, and learning. This work is done through the Tech Bunker, an interdisciplinary lab developed in 2018 that functions as a hub for technology reference. And she will be speaking a little bit more today as she goes through her presentation. So just a brief overview of what her presentation is on today and what this webinar is. So as one of the many challenges that information professionals faces the constant evolution of technology, it directly influences the behaviors and needs of our users. And in this immersive environment, everything is becoming active and interactive. And this presentation will provide a demonstration of one of the ways that Wayne State University Libraries is helping individuals to become global learners in a fast-paced and technical society. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to our presenter. So Damecia, if you want to share your screen and let me know if you have any issues doing that.
I think you have to share.
Okay. So okay. Yep, does that work?
Okay, there is my screen. Is everybody able to see it? Can you hear me?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, perfect. So I'd just like to take a moment to thank the ACRL team for organizing this and putting this together. And thank you to everyone who is participating as a member of the audience. So the title is kind of long, but it's connecting the dots through community, technology, and engagement. So there's my name, my email address. So after this presentation, if anyone has any questions or you just want to have a general conversation about technology, library stuff, or anything like that, I'm very happy to do that. So I'll just give a sort of general overview of what I'll be discussing today. So this presentation isn't necessarily full of citations and research. Rather, it's a discussion about sort of the journey that we've gone on in building this space and the things that we're trying to do, and a discussion about some of the ideas we're trying to push forward in the Wayne State University library system. So if you take a look at the list, I will share some basic information about Wayne State University. I'll talk a little bit about myself. I'll go through the ideas related to strategic planning. I'll talk a little bit about some ideas related to the future of work. I'll talk about some ideas related to community, and then we'll move into a conversation about the Tech Bunker, and then end with a conversation about community or technology reference. So these are some images from some of my favorite spots on campus at Wayne State. So Wayne State is a public research university in what's called Midtown Detroit. So just a little brief background on how Detroit is split up. So it's, it's a kind of a large city and it's broken up into different areas. So Midtown is near downtown. So surrounding us, we have a lot of great cultural institutions. So we have the Detroit Institute of Arts. We have this massive, awesome Detroit Public Library. So we're really in the middle of a really vibrant and thriving cultural area. So Wayne State was founded in 1868, and it's one of 3 research corridor universities that includes Michigan State and the University of Michigan. So we have 13 schools and colleges and over 350 programs available to students. So back in 1868, the first part of Wayne State University was established, and it was actually called the Detroit College of Medicine. So from there, many additions were made. We got our College of Education, our College of Nursing, and so forth. And it wasn't until 1934 that Wayne State became Wayne State University. And then the name, oh, I'm sorry, we have so much history, sometimes I confuse the dates. So it was 1934 when we officially became Wayne University, and then the name changed to Wayne State University in 1956. So as far as libraries and archives, we have the David Adamani Undergraduate Library, we have the Purdy Kresge Library, we have our Ruther Library, which houses all of our archives. We have our Schiffman Medical Library and the Neath Law Library. The School of Information Sciences is also a part of our library system. So the School of Information Sciences and all of the libraries are under the direction of our Dean, John Cawthorn, who came on board in 2017. So over the years, we've seen a lot of changes across campus. And our current president, Roy Wilson, and our current provost, Keith Whitfield, along with other high-level staff, have really done a lot for the campus, especially in terms of retention and recruitment, specifically for minority students or underserved populations. So we're at like a very exciting time right now. So I'm very excited to be a librarian at Wayne State University, where our motto is industry, intelligence, and integrity. And so that emphasizes the campus belief in being warrior strong. That's what we are, we're Wayne State warriors. And I think that we do a really good job at recruiting students who sort of have those same philosophies in life. So that's me, some goofy pictures. So I just wanted you to kind of have an idea of my personality. So I like to have fun, I like to explore, I like to learn new things. And these photographs are actually from, I forgot I put these in there, sorry, I keep giggling about this. But they're from probably a couple years ago when the space first opened. And I was super excited because we were getting our Alienware computers. And so I was just taking selfies of everything, including myself all day. So I just wanted to share that as, like I said, so you could kind of see what I look like and kind of gather my personality a little bit. And that hair, just an aside, I'm a wig connoisseur. So if you ever meet me in person or I do another presentation that you attend, I may look different. I change my hair up pretty much every day. So like I said, I like to have fun. But I've been at Wayne State University since 2008, first as a student and a graduate student assistant in the Purdy Kresge Library. So upon graduating in, when did I graduate? 2010, I was asked if I was interested in part-time special projects librarian opportunity. Of course, I said yes, and then I was hired in full-time in late 2011. Since then, the library system has seen many, many, many changes, and I've held many different librarian roles in the library system. So I did a lot of reference and instruction at first, then I moved into scholarly communications, and sort of those two areas that I worked in sort of led me to the role that I have today. So I work in the undergraduate library and focus on developing strategies for innovative library services using various futures forecasting techniques. And I'll talk a little bit about futures forecasting in a later slide. So just to kind of give an overview of how the space was developed, who was working on it, and sort of the different things that we did. This slide is just sort of a brief explanation of the strategic planning process that we went through in 2016. So the library system worked on a strategic planning process as part of a larger strategic planning process the entire university was undergoing. So there were several committees that were formed. I was the chair of the Innovative Technology Goals Committee. And basically this committee was under the leadership of someone who is currently our assistant dean, but back when we were doing this, they were director of our discovery services area. So the committee was made up of individuals from across the library system. So librarians, archivists, circulation staff, we had a student on there, and we were tasked with creating a plan that spanned for 5 years until 2021. And so what we set out to do was to come up with ways to advance the technology, to help our users find new and exciting ways to engage with us as a library system via technology. So we did things like a lot of research. We did an environmental scan of services and products and resources and things that we were already delivering to our users, so that we could see what we were already doing and sort of figure out how to take it to the next level. We identified key stakeholders. We did various surveys that went to students, staff, faculty, as well as the Detroit community. So being located where we are, we don't only get students, faculty, and staff, we get a lot of people who live within the city who come in to use our library. And then, like I said before, we used a lot of the information from the campus strategic plan to sort of try and fit the libraries into what the campus was already talking about. And we identified targeted opportunities, or that low-hanging fruit that we could sort of implement fast. Not super fast, but fast enough so that the work that we did, basically didn't go to waste. So in the midst of all of that, so we are having all these various meetings, we're coming up with all these new great ways of doing things, we got a new dean. So changes in leadership can mean a lot of different things. And things were really starting to fall into place with the idea of creating a technology space. So a lot of changes did happen right away when we got our new dean, but one thing that didn't change was our drive to implement some of those ideas, some of those low-hanging fruit ideas that we felt that we could do quickly. So thankfully and luckily and happily, our new dean, John Cawthorn, turned out to be very, very open to innovation and creativity. So we were all super stoked to know that the hard work wouldn't be pushed to the side. So a short time after Dean Cawthorn arrived, he presented us with a list of some visionary pillars that he had come up with. And so they're the basic ideas are listed here, and there's a link if you want to take a look at them. It's not some extensive long thing to read. They're very short and to the point. So I'll just sort of give you an idea of what each one entails. So in the student success pillar, that basically revolves around open, innovative, and flexible approaches to lifelong learning. The community engagement pillar It's just all about creating safe spaces for, let's say, interdisciplinarity and inquiry, where we create opportunities to create knowledge. Scholarship just basically means that we seek to become an incubator for ideas and solutions that shape scholarship. And then finally, organization and culture, which is all about building a library culture that works effectively to encourage all of the pillars. So with our new dean coming aboard, I started thinking about the best way to approach the project, the specific project that I wanted to work on, which was to create a technology space. And so after a lot of research and a lot of digging around and contemplating and thinking about it, I thought that the best way to approach it would be to consider looking at this idea of the future of work. So the question became, how do we incorporate this idea of the future of work into a library service? So again, like I said, I was doing a lot of research. I was, seeing what other libraries were doing. I was looking at corporations. I was looking at all different types of businesses and companies. And I was like, we're in the middle of basically the fourth industrial revolution, right? So it's called Industry 4.0. And it's a new phase that focuses on interconnectivity, automation, real-time data, and machine learning. And so I was like, okay, that's awesome. But like, those are huge topics, and they're not always approachable to people. So again, you have stuff like the Internet of Things, cloud computing, artificial intelligence. And so I started thinking about Moore's law, which is the idea that the speed and capability of computers can be expected to double every 2 years. Right? There's no way we can keep up with that. So I'm like, okay, this is all great, but it's also super overwhelming to think about the fact that technology is disrupting pretty much every industry in every country and creating massive change in nonlinear ways at unprecedented speeds. So the thought was, all right, so we're a library system. We're here to offer information, access to resources, and all of these awesome things. So as people evolve, their expectations of their libraries and their communities, they will expect us to be able to provide them with tools, information, and resources that help them, thrive and survive in society. And so with this idea of technology, I was like, well, the technology is blowing up, which is great, but how can we be a part of that as librarians, as information professionals? What can we do so that the human aspect stays along with the growth of technology? So everything doesn't just turn into, we revolve everything around technology. So I said to myself, well, as educators, we should offer services that provide support to the development of a diverse set of skills that combine, like I said, the technical with the human. So there was the main crux of the space that I was thinking I wanted to launch. What the Tech Bunker would try to provide was a link to building community, conversation, scholarship, etc., in the name of building a bridge between the human and the technical. We don't want to just do things in the bunker. We want to create discourse and knowledge around what we're doing and why we're doing it. So this slide just kind of goes over, just so you can see it sort of in writing, instead of me explaining it, the process that I went through in developing the space. So it wasn't quick. It didn't happen overnight. Started in 2016, and the space launched in June of 2018. So again, with that, we did the strategic planning. We had the Innovative Technology Goals Committee. We got a new dean. I pitched the idea around to various administrators, to librarians, library staff. We worked really hard on trying to figure out what technology to purchase. And the biggest thing was space. Like, where was this thing going to go? It's not like we had a whole bunch of money laying around and we could just build a new building or build out on the library. So what we ended up doing was using one of the bigger study rooms that we have in the undergraduate library, and then next door to it, a smaller room. So those ended up being the spaces that we used. And upon opening, I had a really awesome graduate student assistant who worked with me starting in 2017. And he helped me do a lot of research on the different types of technologies, different types of spaces. He was reaching out to different libraries to see sort of what people were doing, what was working, what wasn't. So staff to come in, or even if it was a situation where they wanted to do a workshop on something. Also in fall of 2018, so the space launched in June. In 2018, I applied to be a fellow in a Futures Institute, which was hosted by Amy Webb. So Amy Webb is what's known as a futurist. She works out of New York City. And what her company does, they work with businesses, corporations, to help them sort of figure out and navigate technology and the impact that it may have on their industry. So we spent a lot of time. This was a three-day intensive fellowship. It was completely virtual. There were about 20 of us who were chosen out of, I think, like 400 or 500 people. So it was a pretty exclusive institute that I was a part of, which was amazing. But what she taught us is that you look for signals on the fringe. So basically what that means is specifically in terms of technology. So as I said before, it's constantly growing, at unprecedented rates, and it's pretty much impossible to keep up with everything. But what she says is that maybe you pick one technology, you do your research on it, find out the history about it, figure out who's using it in what ways, and you sort of just gather data from that, and you're able to make decisions about how that technology can be used within your own industry. So what you do after you've pulled the data from what's called the fringe, sort of that underlying data that you really don't see until you investigate something. So you take that data and you create different scenarios about how this technology can impact your industry, what you think it may look like in 5 years, sort of catastrophic ways that it can go, pragmatic ways. So it's just a way of analyzing something that seems really massive and breaking it down into pieces so that you're able to use it to project and create ideas for your future. So that was great. That was awesome. I'm very happy to have had that opportunity. And then, as of 2019 to 2020, I'm lucky enough to have some part-time and student staff working with me. And I will say that the process wasn't easy, took a long time, a lot of things happened. But one thing that really helped was having consistent administrative support. Even if it was just one person who was a champion for the idea. So like I said, we underwent a lot of staffing changes, pretty much since 2011. We've had a lot of people come and go for various reasons. So it can be hard to find like one champion, who's willing to help you with your ideas. But I was lucky enough that I consistently had awesome administrative support. So this slide is an image from a poster that I created for a presentation, and it's all about this idea of developing community by building relationships. So the three main ideas that we were to focus on for this poster were educating, caring, and collaborating. So myself and the two staff that currently work with me, Robert and Quintessa, we designed this poster to sort of illustrate some of the things that we had been doing over the years. So under the educating area, we do a lot of work with Detroit schools, as well as with our own Wayne State students. So the section that says educating is just an example of, so there's a program called SMASH. Some of you may be familiar with it. It's a nationwide STEM-based residential college prep program. So these students actually come to campus and stay on campus. And the campus that they come stay on provides them with learning opportunities. So we had multiple groups of students from the SMASH group come in, and it was great because they used Raspberry Pis and some basic Python scripts to actually convert some sequential photos that they took into an animation. So they were given a basic introduction to Pi and to Blender, and it was great because it was like magical, and they just kind of took to it, and it was awesome to see and awesome to experience it. And also related to educating, STEAM Builders Camp. So Quintessa, who is a computer science student, actually did some of her own digging around, and she found a local entrepreneur who, he had this idea for this camp, but he didn't have a place to do it. So we ended up collaborating with him and using a resource called code.org and Tinkercad. We had numerous K through 12 students come in and learn about 3D modeling, visual programming, engineering, as well as the arts. So, she's a student. She did that on her own, which was awesome. And then the caring section, that is an example of, let's say, a prototype of something called a light aid that one of our Wayne State students made for his sister who has visual and cognitive disabilities. So the code and everything for this is available in GitHub if anybody was interested in looking at it. And then that last one is an image of, so we had two neuroscience students come in who had images of brain scans of their own brains, and they wanted to construct 3D prints to use for further study. So those are just some of the ways that we work to build community and to sort of explore what it means to work with other people. So this slide just has some various images of what the space looks like. You see, I told you it was a study room. It's literally a study room, and we cram in there and we do all kinds of awesome stuff. But considering when campus reopens, whatever the social distancing rules are that come into play, we're gonna have to make some big considerations to figure out how we can continue to do the work with those considerations in mind. And then I mentioned the vault. So the vault is the room that's next door. We're slowly but surely bringing that side of the space to life. That side, we're trying to make it so that it's not, so, okay. So the space can look kind of intimidating when you see it. For one thing, it's a smaller space, but also, there's a 3D printer in there, there's computers in there, there's a VR machine. And so it may seem kind of intimidating to people. So with the vault, what we want to do is provide an area for people who aren't necessarily interested in those bigger types of technologies, but are interested in the idea and the creative freedoms, right? So artwork, sewing machines, if people just come in there and they want to write, like it's just whatever you feel like you want to do creatively, if it doesn't involve technology. Because we've had some people who, you know, come to the space and they say, this looks scary. Like, I really want to come in here. I really want to see what's going on, but they're nervous or intimidated by whatever reason. So we try and do a lot of things, a lot of activities. We're always super happy. You know, people peek their head in and they go, what's this? And we're like, come on in, check it out, see what we have. So we try and make it as open and inclusive and as fun as possible so that people aren't, you know, the stuff that we have is really for everybody, but I think that each individual has to have an understanding of what works for them and sort of how it can work for them. So again, the two spaces, just going back to the Technology Goals Committee, when we created these initiatives, like I said, they were based on the bigger Wayne State University strategic plan. So some of the areas that we have a lot of conversations about are actually those areas from the strategic plan. So things like research, entrepreneurship, teaching excellence, diversity and inclusion, all of these things actually come up in conversations when we're working with the different tools, when we're doing something with VR, or when we're making a 3D printed electric guitar. So when Dean Cawthorn came on board in 2017, the pillars that he came up with and created aligned heavily with what we'd created. So like I said, awesome. I'm lucky and thankful that things sort of fell into place. So these are just more images of some of the students that we've had come visit us and some of the projects that they worked on. So there are 4 words that we commonly use to describe what we like to see happen in some way or another when people visit the space. So the space is open to anyone who comes into the library. It's not just for students, faculty, and staff. It's for anybody. So discover, dream, develop, and design are the 4 main ideas behind the 2 spaces. So these words can mean different things for each of us as individuals. What we want to do is help people find their own connection and their own sort of voice to what those words mean to them. So I'll just describe a couple of the things, a couple of the pictures or images that are in this slide. So the young man that has the VR headset, so he literally just came into the space and he was like, I have this idea for this virtual reality game for elementary age school kids, right? And so his idea was that they travel through these different rooms, and as they solve these puzzles, they're actually learning how to do math. So we're like, yeah, come in, sit down. Like, here's the headset. You know, how can we help you? If we really didn't have to help him with anything much, he kind of just sat down and started going into it. Underneath that, we have a lot of skateboarders on campus, and this student wanted to sort of make his skateboard super fast and electrical. So we helped him come up with the design, and we have some videos of him scooting around campus. It's pretty great. We have one of the students, the young lady that's sitting on the floor with the papers and stuff in front of her. She was an avid sewer. She likes to sew stuff. So she came in, we had some materials. She sat down, she made an outfit in like a few hours. I was like, sweet, look, this is awesome. And then some of the other stuff, there's a picture of what looks like a toilet over there. So that was an adventure that we had with some high school students, and they had literally never seen Blender before. If you're not familiar with Blender, it's a software for 3D rendering and modeling and animation. And she had like a 15-minute talk about Blender and learned about some of the basic controls. And she was like, okay, I'm just gonna make something. And she sat there and she made that. And we were like, that's so cool. Like, you know, just providing a little bit of access for people and sort of their imaginations and the creativity sort of take hold. So it's really great to see that. So this slide is just sort of an image-based presentation of the ideas of dreaming, discovering, developing, and designing being delivered. So these are some specific examples of some of the successes that we've seen. So that middle image with the two gentlemen. So the person sitting down is one of our former students named Jashawn, and he actually came into the tech bunker with this game for an idea, or an idea for a game, sorry, an idea for a game. This game is called Beast Mode On. He used Steam to make it. It's still there available for purchase. And he also did the entire soundtrack for it. And he's being interviewed by Jacob, who was a communication and journalism student. So basically what happened, like I said, Jashawn came into the space and he was like, can you guys help me make a game? And we're like, sure, what kind of game do you make? Like, this is awesome. Let's see what we can figure out. And then Jacob came into the space one day with one of the communications classes that he was in. I did like a sort of intro to the space to them so that they could have an idea of what was available to them. And Jacob was like, well, do you have any students that you've come across that you think would be really good for me to interview, because he's a gamer too. He's into sports announcing and all of these different things. So I immediately thought of Jashawn. And so I you know, asked if it was okay to share email information. The two of them got into contact with each other. And the next thing I knew, they were asking me when they could come into the space to do an interview. And I was like, this is awesome. This is exactly the kind of things that we wanted to see happen. So now Jashawn has graduated and he works at Ford, which is super great. He got the job at Ford because somebody from Ford saw his game on Steam and literally just contacted him and gave him an interview. Jacob has also graduated. He has a job on campus in one of our marketing departments, and he's doing a lot of freelance and podcasting work. So that's just one of the examples of individual success that we've seen so far within the space. So this slide is just kind of meant to dig a little more deeper into the idea of purpose and the reason that the space exists, and some of the different ways that we seek to create global learners in a fast-paced society. So obviously access is important, providing access to tools and resources, and those resources also include human resources, such as myself, other students, other colleagues in the library and across campus, people within the Detroit community, etc. We want to be one of the links between people and whatever their vision is of success. So going on a journey with students from education to employment is super important. Again, it relates to that idea of the future of work. And then you sort of saw an example with Jashawn and Jacob in that prior slide, how things work with education to employment. We're also really interested in helping people develop the necessary human and technical skills to thrive. Super stoked to provide meaningful opportunities, you know, meeting up with people who have similar interests, finding people to work on projects with, etc. We're super interested in providing an avenue for collaborations with other students, community members, staff, etc. One of the big ones is this idea of engaging the unknown. So there's a lot of unknowns. We're experiencing a lot of those now during this pandemic. But there are a lot of unknowns, especially when it comes to technology. And so one of the things that we do a lot of discussions about is the idea of courage and sort of what it means to step outside of the box, what it means to step outside of your comfort zone, and how that can help you grow as a person. So we do a lot of, we do a lot of talking in the space. It's not just coming in there and playing around with stuff. We really try and dig down into the reasons for the technology, uses for the technology, and how we as people, as students, as librarians, as community members, as whoever, how we can embrace the technology and sort of make it our own. And that also has a lot to do with the last term, this idea of empowerment. So we want people to know and understand that as an individual, they're empowered to thrive, they're empowered to live their lives, they're empowered to create, and we want to provide a safe space for that. And we also want to play a role in leadership. So this idea of helping students find campus leaders that can help them bring the president, the dean of students, whoever it is. So, the space and the people who work in the space sort of serve as a link to those types of individuals who can help people, bring their dreams to life. So the next couple slides just give you an idea of some of the bigger projects that we've worked on. So the previous slides were sort of talking about how we've been able to help individuals. So the next couple slides will sort of demonstrate to you how we've been able to bring some ideas to the campus at large. So when the space first opened in 2018, we started getting regulars, right? So just like any other library space, a lot of the time you have people who come in and you see them all the time, every day, couple days a week, whatever the case may be. So there was a group of students who were avid gamers, right? And so that's like all they talked about, League of Legends, Overwatch, all these different games, Smash. And I was like, okay, well, let's see, let's have some conversations with them and see if there's something that they want to do. And there was something that they wanted to do. So by the end of 2018, they'd form an eSports student organization, and I'm their advisor. So since then, we've come a long way with a lot of things that we're doing, one of which was WayCon. So WayCon was a collaboration between the Wayne eSports Student Organization and the Wayne Anime Student Organization. So this was a convention. I had very little to do with helping them organize it. I was there to help them with marketing and things like that. But they organized it, they set the schedule, they found the location, they did all this stuff on their own. So luckily, I'm super excited that we got it, that we had it before we were put on quarantine. It was literally the week before sort of all this stuff happened. So they had, I would say from the registration list, there were about 850 people that registered for this, right? So that's awesome. This is the first convention like this that campus has ever done. And we have 800 people that want to come to it. So we went from 10 to 5. We were originally scheduled to stay till 6, but the Student Center kicked us out at 5 because they had to get out of there. But it was very well attended. Like it was awesome. Like nothing happened. There were a lot of people who had concerns about the fact that it was anime and esports. So I don't know how familiar you are with either one, but both of those areas come with some controversy for various reasons, but it was a very safe space. Everybody was awesome. There were vendors, they were doing presentations, they had panels. it was great. So I was happy to have had the opportunity to help them bring that idea to life. And so I kind of briefly already mentioned some stuff about eSports. So like I said, there's an eSports student organization that was started at the end of 2018. We've come a long way with it. Right now, we're at a point where we're making a lot of headway with it. So eSports is basically just competitive gaming. So there are various teams for games, like I mentioned earlier, League of Legends, Overwatch, Smash, and there's a list of other games. So when the students put this student organization together and I became their advisor, we were like, okay, so we need to get some attention, right? We need to bring this to the forefront because esports is huge, 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 huge all over the world. So it makes sense for us to, participate in it. So working with the students, myself and our assistant dean grabbed ourselves a seat at the table with the provost because of this. And we sort of, laid out a vision for it based on what the students were saying. The students were going to student senate and talking about it, academic senate, wherever they needed to go to sort of spread the word. I helped them get those appointments and those meetings that they needed to get. So we've done a lot of gaming events. We're about to do in a couple weeks an invitational with some of the other schools that are doing esports. These images are some of the events that they put on. They do their own streaming. They do all this stuff themselves. I'm just sort of there as support. So through student and community engagement activities with esports, we're actually helping them develop those future-ready skills and creating, a legion of students who are global learners who can thrive in an ever-changing societal and technological landscape. So they serve as mentors, coaches, they offer peer learning opportunities, etc. So as of 2020, there is officially an esports steering committee made up of students, myself, dean of students, representatives from CNIT, and some other important areas. And we're all working together to try and figure out what esports will look like at Wayne State. So the provost and the president are all excited, they're on board, and yay, hopefully this still happens in fall, but we're gonna have an esports lounge open up in the basement of the student center. So that's just an example of two of the ways that we've sort of helped students make some type of impact on campus the way that they want to. So this slide, it just sort of, again, it's just more images of some of the people that have visited the space and just an example of some of the things that happen. So in talking and thinking about all of that stuff, essentially what we're doing is providing community technology reference, right? So we're building a community, we're connecting the dots between people and technology and figuring out what it is that we want to do with this technology stuff, all this crazy stuff that's happening around us. So we have ownership of it, right? So technology isn't just controlling us, but we're taking the technology and breaking it apart and figuring out how we can use it. So we're building community, and by building relationships at various levels, as students, as librarians, as sponsors, as mentors, etc., we're growing knowledge, right? So it's kind of like a think tank or an incubator for knowledge. And it's been really important to engage people outside of libraries to sort of get different opinions and views about, how to do things, how not to do things, how to introduce students and community members to Wayne State and the different resources that Wayne State has to offer. This idea of community technology reference has a lot with has a lot to do with focusing on specific visions that people have and how we can help them bring those to life. It's about, having a purpose, what drives you, what drives relationships. It's all about this idea of being open to revising, adapting, having an open mind, being ready for change, and allowing the people that come into the space to actually make the space what it is. And we learn a lot about what it means to lead versus instruct and when each is appropriate. We're also learning a lot about the fact that it's very important to listen to people, have to listen to people, take time. I keep going back to building relationships, because without building relationships, none of this stuff would happen. And definitely one of the other important components of this idea of community technology reference is basically to stay informed. So this last slide, actually there's one more after this, but this is just a list of some of the resources. This is a very small amount of the resources that I use, but it's some of the ones that I refer to pretty regularly. And then my email address is on there. If anybody, like I said, wants to contact me, ask questions, have chats about things, whatever the case may be. And then that last slide just opens it up for questions. And that's me laying in the middle of a busy street, right when we were first put on quarantine, because I could, because there was no traffic. As you can see, there's cars parked on the street, but nobody was on the street. And then Wayne State is doing some really awesome collaborations with Henry Ford and the Detroit Pistons. So I just kind of wanted to put that on there. We have this awesome basketball arena that's being built. Hopefully it'll be up and ready by 2021. So I'm looking forward to doing some awesome eSports stuff in the very near future. I'm gonna go back to that slide that has the links and stuff on it, but I'm done talking. So if there are questions, I am happy to answer as many as I can in the time that we have left.
Hi, Damecia. One of the questions we got is some of the attendees were wondering if either you or the bunker had a Twitter handle that they could follow.
Right, social media. So that's something that the two staff are working on. So we're part of the library system. So the library system has its own set of socials. So we're still trying to figure out how to incorporate ours into it so that we have our own distinct socials, as opposed to just being a part of the Wayne State University Library socials. So right now, there is no Twitter. We don't have Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter right now.
Another question, I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on some of the strategies that you or your staff use to help involve faculty and students, faculty in their classes with bunker.
So usually what we do, so it's turned out to be similar to when I was doing instruction for different classes. Basically, some people find us. Most of the time we have to go seek faculty out. So one of the more recent projects that we worked on with the English faculty was to help them come up with some entrepreneurship ideas that would help the city of Detroit. So basically what we did is we broke the students up into groups, and they would come in and sort of pitch the ideas that they had. And then we would figure out what types of technology could help them bring those ideas to life, et cetera. We work a lot with, so across campus, there are a lot of faculty who do a lot of work out in the community. So we've been able to collaborate with some engineering faculty, some art faculty, some communication faculty, and work with them and their students on a lot of projects that they're doing in the city. So things related to making music. For the communication department, they had a group of Iraqi students who came and stayed on campus. So we worked with them and helped them create mini podcasts about their experiences here in Detroit. as Iraqi students. So yes, we do a lot of stuff with faculty.
Awesome. Well, one other question we have is one of the attendees was wondering if the tech bunker and the vault are included in first year orientations for students at Wayne State.
So yes and no, right? We've had luck when we've been included in those types of things, but the way Wayne State does first year orientation has changed a lot over the years. So it's been sort of hit or miss, but we do collaborate with various departments so we do a lot of summer programming, not so much this summer probably, but we do a lot of summer programming where we get high school students who come in or students who are going to be freshmen in like the following fall. So we're able to work with new students in that way, but we're not formally a part of like a first year orientation type of activity. We have what's called Festival, and that happens every September. So it's basically just a big gathering outside of Wayne State faculty, staff, students, and we sort of talk about what Wayne State has to offer. So we always have a table at that. So again, there's not a really big, we don't really have like a super coordinated first year experience on campus, but that's something that's being worked on.
Another question we have is one of the attendees wanted to ask, what technology in the fringe are you paying the closest attention to?
Artificial intelligence is probably the first one that comes to mind. Cloud computing, biotechnology, those are probably the three that I'm most interested in right now, just because they're doing the most, I think, in terms of fringe science, right? So that science that's kind of like out there and it's kind of like weird still, but it's still happening. So those are probably the three main areas that I'm most interested in right now.
Awesome. Just one, I guess, kind of final question, and it's actually more for the organizers of the presentation. And we had an attendee asking if the recording will be shared with participants. I understand that will be the case. Dina or Minhao, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there will be a recording and shared with everybody. And I got some responses that yes, that will be the case. So that's the last questions I received. So I guess I'll turn it over to you, Dina.
Yep, so I just wanted to thank our presenter again, and thanks Sam for moderating the chat. He's put in a few links in the chat for our feedback survey, so please, if you have a chance, fill that out. And the URL to the recording will be included in the follow-up email to all the listservs, and Sam just posted the link to that form again. And I'm also going to include the link in the chat to our LibGuide. So if you're interested in learning more about TULS, please feel free to click. But thank you again, Damecia, and thank you everyone for attending. And have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you.